Hello friends, I am Chevy. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? Hope it's all fantastic and wonderful. Everything here is great. Yesterday, while I was talking to you about the train game, some thoughts rolled through my head about a different approach to the train game. An entirely different approach. No, that's not true. Not entirely. So, if you haven't watched all the videos, the train game that I've been working on for months is card-driven, meaning that you place tracks based on cards that you have in your hand, and I really like that mechanic, and that's what the entire train game was designed around. I had this idea for a hex-based map with cards. I used a similar card play movement mechanic in a tank game that I did years ago, and I thought it'd be fun to apply that same sort of principle to hexes. So I have this, play a card, and the way the card is drawn depicts where you put trains, and I thought that'd be a fun game, and so that's where this two-player train game has come from. But while thinking about how two players play this game, there are some issues that I still have with it, and the main one is that the cards are too much of a factor, meaning that your turn is almost always dictated by what you can do versus what is the best choice. There's very rarely a choice. I mean, okay, so what I mean by that is the way the game works, you get paid by making connections, and so bringing a train company to a city is a huge part of that game, and you want to do that as much as possible. And so on your turn, you are going to play cards that make a connection. That's like becomes your main goal every single turn, is to make a new connection. And so that's very rarely there's very rarely a choice. The way the cards work in your hand, you pretty much only have one option. Maybe on some turns you have a couple of options and you get to pick one, but for the most part, you're going to do whatever the cards in your hand say. All right, I can make this connection. Well, I guess that's what I'm doing, because that is the obvious best play. And that's a problem for me. Like, while it's fun and enjoyable, it's also, I like to give players more agency than that. So I've been thinking of an alternate version of the game, and that doesn't use the cards at all. And as soon as I can find somebody to help me test it, I'm going to test it. I don't want to test it with Em because it's not her type of game. She really enjoys the card play. She enjoys the puzzle of figuring out how to play the cards best in her hand, and the competitive play is just a side effect of that for her. But in the two-player variant, or in the variant version that I have in my head, it won't use those cards at all. And it'll be much more of a traditional train game where you need to, play your stocks appropriately to make connections and gain bonuses, versus being stuck with what's in your hand. So, I think it will be a much better train game. Will it be a better game? I don't know. It'll be more thematically tied to Cube Rails games that people love. It'll just be for two players. But also, with that version, it doesn't necessarily have to be just a two-player game. With that version, it could be... Well, it would be difficult to make it three-player. It could be a four-player game. I could make it work with three. I could mess with the number of share certificates to make it work. But the point is, I want to throw half the game away and try again. Just like we talked with the Viking game, I've been married to that Viking game for far too long, and I think I need to throw most of it out and start over. And I think that's the only real way to make progress there. The train game, I've been trying to find a way to make turns more meaningful, or make players' decisions. Turns are already meaningful, but your decision as a player is not super meaningful. Meaning, again, like we just said, the cards kind of dictate what you're going to do on your turn. And for me, it bothers me a little bit. And I so far have not found a way to make it more interesting. I guess I could tighten the map and make it so that on every turn you're making multiple connections. There's just cities all over the place, and you're just going to try to make the best situation. That might be one way to do it, and I'm considering it. I'm considering putting, like, doubling the number of cities that are on a board and making it so that connections are happening all over the place, which would mean that you have a whole lot more agency, and it might be a more interesting game. I just need to test that. But I still think that that will be a more funsy version. But what I have right now, I think could work really well without the cards. Just cut them out completely and have a different way of laying track. And I think it could be just as interesting, if not maybe even more interesting than what I've currently got going. So I want to try it. I need to find somebody to play test with who can... I need to do it in person. Getting online and doing it is really difficult for me. I need to sit down and have a back and forth where I can just change the game up as I'm playing it and say, no, let's not do that this turn, let's do that this turn, and see how that works. But I'm actually kind of excited about it. I'm excited to throw half the game away, and I think that's something that's a little bit of personal growth, right? Like, I'm not afraid of tossing it out. I've always kind of, as a wannabe game designer, I have always started with an idea first, not a theme or not a concept, but an idea of, I want to make a game where I play cards and put trains on the board, and that's what I did, and it works, but I think that's holding me back now. I think that I've arrived at a point where I can make a better game without that original idea. I can lean more heavily into, let's make a good competitive two-player train game. I just need to be able to do it, and part of that is letting go of the baby, like letting go of the thing that started me on this path in the first place. But that's what the game wants, I think, in my head, at least. Until I sit down and try it, I won't know. Hopefully that'll happen soon. But, you know, I got some things going on over the next few days, so it's not going to be instantaneous. I also haven't gotten the new map to try the current version, so hopefully that'll happen this weekend. Other playtesting is happening this weekend for other games. It's going to be busy. So what are you up to these days? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's word you should know to sound smart is ideologue. It is a noun meaning a person who rigidly adheres to an ideology with a closed mind regarding other points of view. An ideologue may be defined as a mad intellectual. Clifton Fadiman, an American critic. I can't read today. Ideologue, I-D-E-O-L-O-G-U-E. I think I try to very, very hard to be the opposite of an ideologue. But I think that there are certain things that I'm inflexible on, and maybe that's a problem.